Welcome back to the WAC podcast. Eric Danner and Kendra Sheen. We're now joined by Drew Speraw, the Associate Commissioner for Basketball for the Western Athletic Conference. Drew, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Drew, first off, not only welcome to the show, welcome to the WAC. You started here just a little while ago and already got your feet wet with your first WAC basketball tournament. Let's kind of, I guess, back up a little bit, let people know who you are and where you're from. I guess more specifically, where do you come from right now to the WAC?
Yeah, obviously I started probably a little over a month ago now. Like you mentioned, went to Vegas with the staff and we had a great tournament there. But most recently, I was the director of basketball operations at Kansas State under Coach Weber for the last 9 years. Was with him for 10 years, actually. The first year I was a video coordinator. And previously before that, I worked at the University of Iowa with Coach McCaffrey for 2 years as a graduate assistant. And I played basketball at the University of Central Florida, in the early 2000s. So I grew up around Florida, Orlando area. So I've kind of been all over the place. Obviously been in the Midwest here for the past 12 years or so, but excited to join the WAC and bring my basketball knowledge and experience to this position. And so far it's been really great. Like you mentioned, we were at the conference championship in Vegas. That was my first experience with the WAC championship, and it was a well-run event. I thought we had everybody there did a great job, and I thought the outcomes were great for our teams. And then obviously I followed New Mexico State to Buffalo the week after, and I was with them and saw their great victory in the NCAA tournament, and one that's obviously will be remembered. And so it's been an exciting few weeks for sure. Heading off to the Final Four this weekend, to do some more work down there. And so, it's been a whirlwind so far, but like I said, I've had a great time.
You grew up in a basketball house. Your father is the assistant coach over at Iowa. You actually went to a game over there. How has, when did you know that working in athletics was for you, and what drew you to the WAC to begin with?
Well, athletics has just been a part of it for my whole life. Like you said, my father's been a basketball coach for probably around 40 years or something like that. Bounced around Florida, was an assistant at the University of Florida. He was a head coach at UCF for 17 years. So that was where we spent most of our time. And so I've grown up around teams. I've grown up around coaching, and that's kind of been where I started. And so it was early on when I knew I wanted to be in athletics. And obviously I was on the coaching kind of pathway for a long time. And the past 3 or 4 years or so, I've just been exploring, where can I take my expertise and kind of an administration side of basketball and business aspects of it, and where I can be effective. And I was fortunate enough to know Brian, and when he gave me the opportunity to come to the WAC, I was excited about the prospect of what the WAC is and what it's going to become. I think this is a league that's growing very rapidly, and something that has a lot of great things on the horizons. And so I'm just excited to be a part of the WAC and help open up this new era of WAC basketball with all the schools that we're adding and the things that we're doing that'll be different for the future.
Drew, definitely the WAC changing even from a few years ago in terms of basketball, both men's and women's. You mentioned New Mexico State getting a win in the NCAA tournament. Stephen F. Austin on the women's side, getting a 12 seed, giving North Carolina all they can handle up until the fourth quarter. Let's go back to WAC Vegas. Your first time there. Obviously, you said you've been coaching for a while. You've been to a lot of basketball tournaments. What were your thoughts on being in Vegas during that week in particular? I mean, the WAC, the Mountain West, Pac-12, Big West, all having tournaments at the same time. It's really the mecca for college basketball that week.
No question. From that perspective, like you just mentioned, you have so many different leagues that are running events in Vegas at the same time. I think that's huge. It creates such a great atmosphere in the city that during that week, with all the different basketball that's going on. Obviously, everybody else is seeing it on TV. My experience previous has been mostly in cities where there's only one event going on. We worked at the Big 12 championship, and that's in Kansas City, and it's a great event, and Kansas City gets behind it, but it is kind of the show. And same thing with the Big Ten. When I was there, we would have our events. It would either be in Indianapolis or Chicago. I think they rotate now to DC and New York. But again, it's pretty much the only thing that was going in Indianapolis and Chicago. And when I was at UCF, when we played in conference championships, the field was a lot different even from what we did at the WAC. But we were playing at host sites. Most of the years that I was there, we played at Memphis. They were kind of the host of the championship, obviously with Coach Cal and the success that they had. Conference USA kind of, that's kind of where we ended up having our championship most of the year. So to be in a place like Vegas with a neutral site with so much going on, the excitement, I think it's a great opportunity for fans, a great opportunity for our institutions, and to get there and have a great experience during conference championship week. Because when you're a player, it's such a huge thing to go to the conference championship, give yourselves a chance to go dancing and make March Madness. I think that's something that's special for each kid. And I think WAC Vegas definitely lived up to that for our WAC schools.
The traveling doesn't stop for you. You had just mentioned that after our Zoom that you're going to have to pack. You're headed to New Orleans for the Final Four. I know that there's a lot that goes on besides just the basketball games. What are you looking forward to most in that experience that you're going to have in just a few days?
Yeah, the Final Four it's a great opportunity. First, you get back in front of a lot of people you don't see. We haven't had a Final Four in 2 years that is attended to by coaches and convention, and so kind of opened up a little bit here, and excited to be in a place where get with colleagues, get in front of our coaches that are in the WAC, coaches and administrators from other places, and it's a place where we can bounce ideas. Obviously, have a host of meetings that we're going to get to, and things that are working towards with the future with the WAC. I think that's the big thing that I'm hoping to get out of it down there is, get in front of some folks and find ways that we can advance this basketball league from a men's and a women's perspective going forward.
Well, you mentioned that you had a chance to go to Buffalo for the NCAA first round, where New Mexico State picked up the first win by a WAC team since 2007. Kendra and I were with a couple of coworkers at a local establishment cheering our hearts out. One of the few times we can cheer, since we always need to remain neutral at most of our venues. Drew, what was it like in the arena there? What was it like being around the New Mexico State team and seeing them pull off that upset victory over Connecticut?
Yeah, Buffalo had a great showing. Great crowds both games that they were there. I think it was like 16,000 the first game and 18,000 the second. It was a great atmosphere. They had a great showing. Obviously, the first game against Connecticut, largely Connecticut crowd because of the location and where it was at, and so them getting that victory, being around that team, I would say they had confidence the entire time. You just had a feel that they were going into that game that they were expecting to win, and that's exactly the type of mentality that's necessary to take a team like that and advance in the NCAA tournament. And so I think kudos to New Mexico State for not only winning the conference championship, but what they did and they're building their resume throughout the year that put them in a position that they could get a 12 seed. And we've just seen statistically, from bracket followers, everybody always talks about a 12-5 matchup, but even statistically, there's a reason for that. There's a much higher percentage chance that you have an opportunity to win that game. And so for New Mexico State to earn that right, to be in that conversation and to get that game against UConn, I think was huge. And then to go out and back it up with their play. Obviously, the second night didn't exactly go the way that they wanted. Arkansas was a great team, as we saw. They advanced another few rounds after New Mexico State, and so I think that it was a great showing by them as a whole. Obviously, Coach Jans did a remarkable job. Has had the opportunity to get another job and move on. And so I think overall the feel in Buffalo, it's the NCAA tournament. And I think the biggest thing is that we're back to a traditional NCAA tournament. We're back to that feel. We're not in a bubble. It wasn't canceled. I think that was an amazing thing for a basketball, fan, for a basketball person like me to be a part of. And so it was great being there.
Now, conference realignment has been a topic of discussion for the past several months. We've obviously added 4 new basketball schools this year. We'll add UIW, UT Arlington, and Southern Utah next year. For you coming in, where do you hope the conference goes, and how do you hope to contribute to the growing success of the WAC?
Well, obviously, I think we've had a huge jump just in conference ratings in this year. I think last year we were 26th conference. Now we're 15th this year. I think that's a huge step. Obviously, we'd love to even push that further with what we're doing as a group. And so I think, like you mentioned, we're going to add even more teams. Southern Utah has been strong. I think they had a great year. They made it to the semifinals of the basketball classic just the other night. Arlington, another school that has had some basketball tradition, some history there. It's in a place that makes sense with the rest of the league, and honestly have resources that they'll be competing, in the top part of that league. And so obviously Incarnate Word is still, like some of our other institutions, new to the Division I level a little bit, still finding their way. But I believe that they've got some great investments into their facilities, into their program. And so I'm interested to see how they progress as well. Obviously, being in a huge metropolitan area, they're going to have access to recruits and that type of thing. And so I would expect that all three of those institutions add some great value to our team, to our conference as a whole. But obviously, as a collective, the end goal is, continue to push in this conference forward, continually putting ourselves in position where we're getting 12 seeds and higher in the NCAA tournament. Can we put ourselves in a position where we can get multiple bids into an NCAA tournament from men's and women's perspective? And so I think that's kind of the end goal. Obviously, there'll be a lot of legwork to get to that point, and on trying to figure out what can we do scheduling to be creative and competitive. What can we do from a conference standpoint? What can we encourage in a non-conference standpoint? And I think that's part of the reason that I was put in this position is I've spent 10 years scheduling basketball games around the country, and so I have a lot of people that we can lean on, can try to connect. And so I think I'll try to use all those avenues that I can to increase the prospects for our institutions that we have currently, and we will have in the future, obviously. So we're bringing in new ones, and then in a couple of years we'll lose a couple. So I think overall the league is strong, and we've proven that by winning a game and earning a 12 seed. And so we'll just continue to find ways to gain strength as we move forward.
So Drew, you mentioned going to New Orleans, going to some meetings, meeting up with some coaches, those kind of things. But how about attending the games? Are you able to do that? And I think most people in the country would love to be in the arena when North Carolina plays Duke.
No question. I have attended many games in the past. I will not be attending the games this year. Just unfortunate for the timing. I booked this trip quite a while ago, even before I was with the WAC. And so, I didn't plan on staying to have tickets and staying for that game, but I'm hoping to be at a good place to watch that game. Like you mentioned, everybody's going to want to see the North Carolina Duke rematch. And I think obviously the second game, Villanova, Kansas will be equally as good of a game in the Final Four this weekend.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing the story of how that trip went and all the experiences that you'll get to have. That is Drew Speraw, who is our Associate Commissioner for Basketball. Thank you so much for joining us on the WAC podcast. We're happy to have you with the WAC, and enjoy your trip.
I appreciate it. Thank you both. Excited to be here, and we're excited to see where this league goes. Thank you for your work.
All right. Thanks, Drew. And thank everybody for listening to the WAC podcast.
Thanks for listening to the WAC podcast. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And check out our website at wacsports.com.